Let's talk about keeping your students and teachers safe in schools by using body-worn cameras. Hey guys, my name is Dustin McKinney with Wireless Solutions. I'm the marketing and training manager here. Our guest today is Ryan Brady with Motorola Solutions. Ryan, I know you have some education background, and this video is going to be discussing body-worn cameras for the education market, or that vertical. So tell us a little bit about your background in education.
So my name's Ryan Brady, like Dustin said. Before joining Motorola Solutions, I worked in education for 20 years. I spent 10 years as a special education teacher, and then I transitioned, became an assistant principal, worked in high school as an assistant principal in high schools, and an assistant principal in alternative schools for 10 years.
Okay, great. So if you don't mind, give me a little a high-level overview here. Let's just compare the two models kind of side by side. What are the main differences?
So when I consider the educational vertical, our two different cameras have vastly different reasons or resources or ways that we're going to use them. The VB-400, the flagship model, is something that's going to be used by school security, schools, SROs, or also administrators. People who are going to run across issues more often, and they're going to have the ability to have a camera that's a little more durable.
Okay.
Our other camera, the VT-100, is a great camera for the front office use, back office use, where you may have somebody come in, there may be an issue, but you're not going to be actively looking for a problem. So this is something that you can put in a desk. Its battery lasts over 6 months at standby, so you can put it in a desk, and if there's an issue, it can be pulled out, deployed quickly, turned on, and you're ready to go. Okay,
great. So kind of diving a little bit deeper into that, what would be our best practices or best uses for body-worn cameras in a school? I mean, I know you mentioned SROs, administrators, front office. Can you give us a little bit more details of what that would kind of look like?
Absolutely. A lot of issues at a school can begin right at the front office. When somebody comes in that is angry, or if somebody in the front office sees something, or if a parent comes in and says, hey, there's something going on outside, then that is the first point of contact that we have to an issue. And that's when we need to initiate recording to help prevent, to prevent if somebody sees the camera, but also to be able to look at it after the fact and know exactly what happened, what the truth was.
Okay.
When it comes to administrators, as an administrator, I spend a lot of time out of my office walking around the school, and you do come across issues. That's where you're going to see things.
Yep.
You're going to see negative things happen with students, negative things happening with teachers. You're going to see community interacting in a way that they should not be with the school, and that is a time that they can activate that camera.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that the VT-100 is more reactional or situational based, and VB-400 is someone who needs to be wearing them basically throughout the entire day, right?
I would agree 100%. Much more policy based with the VB-400.
Okay.
The VB-400 would be something that somebody would be assigned every day, that they would go and put that on, and at the end of the day they would be uploading their footage if there is any.
Okay, that makes sense. So give us some example. Do you have an example, first of all, maybe not first person, but someone that you know where body-worn cameras proved to be very beneficial in a school environment?
Absolutely. So as an assistant principal, I had a neighboring school, had an issue where they had a student who was arrested in the middle of the day, unfortunately. And of course, what happened, it was in the middle of the lunchroom, everybody got out their cameras.
Yep.
And they turned it on and they're recording it. Well, they only recorded it when it got bad.
Of course.
Okay,
of course.
So in the nightly news, what do we see? We see, SRO, wrestles a student, and it doesn't look very good. Obviously, it's not a good light. We don't want people wrestling students. We don't want anybody getting hurt.
Sure.
It's the last thing that we want as a school. Later on, though, the SRO's body-worn camera on footage was taken, uploaded at the sheriff's office. They viewed that at the sheriff's office, and then they released that to the media, who had to do a big step back from what they had originally said, because that showed 20 minutes of the student harassing the SRO and making it very uncomfortable for the SRO, not listening to what they asked them to do, and really obviously it fit the definition of what the officer needed to arrest the student.
Yeah, and that's huge. I know you say a lot. What do you say? Not control the narrative, but own the narrative.
Own the narrative.
Own the narrative.
Yep.
So that's I see it every day, right? You see it. It's all over. Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media account. These guys or these kids are posting videos of the teacher. They're already at the boiling point then, right? So, but we're not capturing any of that beforehand. We never know what happened. So,
correct.
Having that ability to own the narrative and really release to the public what actually happened and see the events that led up to that can be crucial, right?
No, absolutely. It's all the time. I mean, we're only going to get voluntary footage when it benefits who's showing us the footage.
Exactly.
And that's not a knock on students. I've had some students come up and show me a whole thing. But if I compare it to another student who voluntarily walked up and showed me footage, they could paint a very different story.
Exactly. Yeah. We see that every day, not just in schools, right?
Yes, sir.
So can you give an example of when you may have wished you did have body-worn cameras? How could it have benefited you then?
Through a 10-year career, I've had a lot of situations. But really, for the administrator, when you're at a large school, you're not traveling in packs. You're doing something by yourself. So when you walk across a disturbing situation, a lot of times it can be your word versus somebody else's.
Yep.
And that's scary. That's scary for anybody. I can tell you that as an assistant principal, I was asked, or I was called down to a vehicle that somebody saw a gun case in.
Ooh.
And I went and I looked into the vehicle, and there was a rifle on the school campus. And right as I discovered that, a student walked up to me, the student who owned the car.
Oh, okay.
And I really wish I had had some footage right there because I didn't
Sure.
know what was going to happen. It turned out to be okay. The student had made a mistake, and he unfortunately had to pay for that mistake. But very tense situation.
Of course.
And I have dozens of stories, and anybody who works in a school can tell you there's many times that you walk across something that you wish you had a force multiplier. You wish you had another person with you. You wish you had a way to explain what had happened. As breaking up fights, a number of times I've had the school resource officer come up to me after a fight and say, "What did you see?" Well, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I heard there was a fight, and I ran to it, and I went and I broke it up. I don't
Yeah.
remember what I saw or what I ran across.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm depending on what other people saw because my heart was pounding and I was getting there, and my only thought was I need to stop this fight because they can injure each other or others.
Yeah, exactly. You're in the heat of the moment.
Yes, sir.
The last concern is the details, right? You're
Yeah.
just trying to de-escalate. So, we see that body-worn cameras de-escalate or often prevent situations from happening. I'm sure you've seen that, in areas where body-worn cameras have been implemented, right?
Oh, as an assistant principal, our SROs had body-worn cameras, and it was really cool when you walk into a situation with them and they would turn their camera on and everything would defuse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so as soon as everybody knew that they were being recorded, it was like, okay, I have to stop. And I always wish I had that ability. I had a few times with my SROs that I worked with that their camera footage changed a lot of people's viewpoints. I unfortunately had a time where the SRO and I had to wrestle a student to the ground, and their parents showed up midway. Mm-hmm. And the first thing that they said was, "I can't believe you're doing this to my kid. You can't believe this is my kid."
Yeah.
And all we just looked at each other after the fact and said, "We have body-worn camera to show
Yeah.
what happened, what led up to us having to do
Yeah.
this." So, very, very difficult situations, but I wish I in my career had that ability, that I didn't have to rely on a school resource officer to be able to do that ability.
Yeah. Everybody thinks, not my kid, right? My kid would never do that. So that footage was, I'm sure, crucial.
And anybody on any given day can make a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Of course
100%.
But we have to be ready, and we have to be able to protect ourselves as professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And that also leads into protecting students.
Yep.
So if I can prevent something from happening, if I can walk in with a body-worn camera and that stops people from doing something, I can stop somebody from getting hurt.
Oh, yeah.
I can stop something from
100%.
escalating.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly does it take a fight to turn into 2 or 3? Very quickly.
Yeah.
So, if we can prevent, mitigate, we can help students not get injured, which is the absolute paramount.
Well, that's the ultimate goal, right?
Yes, sir.
Keep your school safe, right? So you mentioned the front office. We all know there's CCTV systems when you walk in. So, those exist in pretty much every school. You got them in the hallway, pretty much everywhere except for what, the bathrooms and locker rooms, right?
Yeah, can't have them in
Pretty much everywhere
those.
else, right?
Those are a bad idea.
So, how are body-worn cameras an advantage over an existing camera system that's an overhead CCTV type setup?
Most school setup are going to involve cameras that are pointed in one single direction.
Okay.
That cover one area, which is fine for a lot of the time, but most events are fluid. Things don't happen in one place. And so when you're looking at a video recording of something, I've had plenty of situations where we have a great view and then they go off camera and then I can't tell what happens. Or I have a great view and then they go underneath the camera and I can't tell what happens. But also a top down doesn't always give you the perspective of the person who's in that situation.
Sure.
The body worn camera, the idea is to mimic the human eye with a 130-degree view to show us in 1080p. No, not worrying about low light situations, just to see what that person's seeing in that situation. So if somebody else has to judge what that person did during that time, they get the true picture, not an adapted picture.
And audio as well, right?
Absolutely. Both cameras can record audio. The VB-400 actually does also have a WIN port.
So noise cancellation ultimately?
Yes. Yeah, it reduces a lot of the wind or the rustling noises that happen.
Okay. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes, sir.
It's wonderful. So if you could summarize, or I don't want to say summarize, what would be your pitch to a school administrator who's considering body-worn cameras? Like, why should they make that decision, make that jump? Is it ultimately school safety? Is it accountability? Is it all inclusive? What would you say there?
I probably would say all of the above, but school safety is paramount.
Yep.
School safety is what our concerns have been in the last 2 decades in America. How can we make our school safer? There's a lot of things we can do, but there's very few things that we can do to prevent things from happening. This is a product that can, by presence, prevent people from doing it.
Absolutely.
Our cameras that are on the wall are great, but we forget that they're there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We forget that they're there. This, we don't forget that's there when it walks up in a situation that's activated.
Well, and kids are smart, right? They probably know where the blind spots are.
We have found that students did find where the blind spots were. They know, you can see the camera, it's right there.
Sure.
And then after, a few times kids get in trouble via the camera, it's that, but this is always gonna be moving. Even if this is on the property edge, a place we would never have a camera, we'll have it there. And that footage is recorded, stored, and saved. You have it right there.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful opportunity. It's a great tool. It's just like everything. It's just a tool. It's not as good or better than anybody who's using it.
Absolutely. So let's talk. I forgot the term. I want to say HIPAA, but that's healthcare. What is it? FERPA. So let's talk FERPA concerns. So if a parent or PTA or whatever it may be, teachers union, school union, whatever, has some concerns about the students being recorded throughout the day, how is our product different than maybe anything you can go buy online for $80, whatever? I know we have full encryption, permission based. Can you dive into that? How does that protect us from that standpoint?
Absolutely. Well, multi-level. Number one, we do record in schools. We have CCTV cameras. They're recording in schools all the time. FERPA, just like HIPAA, is judged in the way that we distribute that information. So we can record at a school, but we can't show that off in public. So we wouldn't send that to the news and put that on the news, anything that we would record.
Sure.
So a body-worn camera compared to a camera on the wall, what is the difference? We're already doing that.
Yeah.
As far as our information, our cameras are built to military toughness, specifically the VB-400. You can take a hammer to this and you can find the chip and you can pull it out and you can try to put in something and it still will be encrypted. It's 4-way encrypted, 256-bit encryption.
So ultimately, let's put that in layman's terms. Nobody can steal my camera and plug it up and pull footage off of it, right?
No. If you obtain that camera in the incorrect way, there's no way you can get the information off of that.
Okay.
So when we're talking about these cameras and we're talking about FERPA, there's not going to be a breach as a result of the camera.
Gotcha.
The only FERPA breaches happen as a result of people making poor choices.
Okay, so that's a great segue. Thank you for that. So let's lead into policy, right? So we have FERPA concerns. We obviously know that the cameras are very secure, right? Now we also need to address that with policy, because we know that our product is only as good as our policy. So how can policy kind of protect us? Do we have any, I don't want to say guidelines, because we're not in the business of making recommendations, but what are some things we need to think about in terms of policy?
Specifics to when you should and should not have the camera, when you should turn it on, what are the times, what are the situations that would call for it.
Okay.
If you're in an office and you're talking to a peer or something, that's not a good time. And that can get you in trouble with a peer recording something. So that's a policy-based thing. We have to make that decision. When should or should I not turn that on?
Okay.
And then when you have established norms, going out, trying those norms to make sure that they work. And then if they need to be make changes, make sure that it's a fluid thing. Most school districts have to work with employees that are on a union. And so that's something that the union needs to discuss too. When can this be used? When can't this be used? So there are different levels that need to be explored. But I think that the biggest purpose that we need to remember is that this is built around safety.
Sure.
It's not a gotcha. It's not I'm here to creep in and watch what you're doing.
Yep.
It's that there's a bad situation, a situation that I could use another body that I don't have here. So how can I make sure that what I'm seeing isn't turned against the school or turned against myself?
Exactly. And if you have a great policy in place that protects your students more than anything, then who's not in favor of that, right?
Correct.
Everybody wants safer schools.
We want to protect our students. We want to protect our staff. Our teachers are a very valuable asset, and the last thing that we want to do is use that footage to harm them.
Great. So let's talk mounting options. Obviously we have male, female teachers, all different shapes and sizes, right?
Yes, sir.
So, what are our options for mounting or wearing, I guess I should say, wearing the body camera throughout a shift?
When it comes to the VT-100, the thing I would suggest is just the way that this one is set up here with a lanyard and with a clip. That way it can be in a desk, and if they view a situation, they can recognize the situation is going negative, or they see something happen, they can pull that out, they can deploy this camera, they can clip it in. It gives a very good viewpoint, and if it gets jostled, this will keep it in place. The lanyard will keep it in place. Okay. So I would definitely go with that. For the VB camera, that's a little more policy-based. You definitely want something that's supportive, not something around the neck that it's going to be often. I really like the close fit. It has a magnet mount. That's very close to the chest. And so, and no matter what you're wearing, if you're wearing a school polo, a school t-shirt on a Friday, it still has support constantly, and you can count on it facing the correct way.
You're not relying on a button to clip through or anything like that, right? You just run a metal backing and then, okay.
The last thing you want to do is turn everything into a uniform.
Exactly. Yep.
The flexibility of the close fit is wonderful.
Okay, great. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about body-worn cameras, please leave a comment below. Like what you saw? Remember to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos about body-worn cameras and two-way radios.